What kind of misconceptions do you think new actors, should be made aware of before they come into the business?
I think one of the misconceptions actors should, first of all, can I say this is great to do this together, to be
Yeah.
able to talk to you, to have this
Yes.
give and take, this Q&A and whatnot. So anyway, just open with that. But I think one of the misconceptions that a lot of actors have is that it's easy, number one, that it's easy to become a star, number two. Number three, it's easy to make a name for yourself and build a brand for yourself. Number three, I think those are three of the top misconceptions that I had when we got into the business, Lydia. And I see that even more, not more, but I see it today also. And I think it depends on who you're talking to. I think if you talk to actors who have been trained in the theater, on the theater schools, they may have a different mentality. But a lot of folks that come to Hollywood and LA and New York, but especially LA, they're seeking fame and fortune. Not everybody, but I think that can be one of the top misconceptions that it's easily attainable.
What does it take to be a top actor in Hollywood? Well, you are going to find out because I am interviewing one of my dearest friends, Blair Underwood. You probably seen him in LA Law, Sex in the City, and recently in Long Legs. He is amazing. I am Lydia Nicole, and this is Acting Smarter Now. When you did Crush Groove, right before you started, when you found out you got the job, how did you feel?
Oh man, when I found out I got Crush Groove, I was over the moon. I mean, I was blown away. I was flabbergasted. I was gobsmacked. I was just completely blown away. Uh, because you have to understand, this was 1985. This is long before a lot of these students probably were. Some of these students were born, but it was 1985. I had just left college because I couldn't afford to stay. I was in the middle of my third year, my junior year in college. Um, just you're prepared again because we were told then it's not going to necessarily maybe not happen for you, and it may not happen quickly if it happens at all. I mean, I was told. I remember when I started at local dinner theaters in Richmond, Virginia, Colonial Heights, and Petersburg. I remember some of the actors there at Swift Creek Mill Playhouse, which is where I started. When I told them I wanted to pursue acting, go to college, I told them I wanted to kind of pursue it as a career. I remember them saying, I can't tell you how many times I heard this statistic, which was the same then as it is now. And that is 2% of actors make a living at this. That's by SAGs, our union statistics. So I knew the decks were stacked against me going into it. So I say all that to say, walking into New York City after I left college in my junior year, nothing's going to be handed to you. You have no high expectations necessarily. I was in the mindset I just wanted to work. I wanted to work. I wanted to work. I wanted to work. My company is called Trabajando Inc. I don't speak much Spanish, but I know that's I know that to work. I said I just want to work. I want to work for the rest of my career. And if other stuff comes, bank account and celebrity, that's icing on the cake. But the focus was the work. So all that to say, when you're in that mindset, looking at a long game, the fact that Crush Groove happened so fast. I mean, I moved to New York January of '85. Crush Groove was opening in theaters in October of '85.
Wow. So when you booked it and you were over the moon and you were thrilled and excited, and now you step onto the set and you are the lead, and it is not like theater. What is the reality that hit you when you started working on this film? Because I'm sure it was a whole different ball game.
Yeah, I hadn't worked with a lot of cameras before because all of my training before college was in theater, in high school, dinner theaters. Then I went to college and learned nothing but theater. That has since changed at Carnegie Mellon, but all of our focus was on stagecraft. So dealing and working with cameras was still very new to me. I was in my first 5 or 6 months in New York City. So the first thing that hit me was, okay, how do I adapt to hitting your mark, hitting your light, making it seem natural and real, do the work at the same time. And then I was surrounded by all these celebrities at the time. We're talking about Curtis Blow, Sheila E., the Fat Boys, Run DMC, and they were huge in their world, the world of hip hop. So it's funny you say I was the lead, and I guess technically, I was, but I didn't feel like it because of the celebrity around these people, not just themselves individually, but the entourage that surrounds people at that time, especially at the height of all their careers. Sheila E. was Prince's protege, and all of that accoutrements that come with Prince at the time, and the entourage and the bodyguards and all that stuff for Sheila, not Prince. So I feel like I'll just, tell me where to hit my mark. I'll say my lines. I'll do what I can do, and try to build on it. Try to build a career on it.
And how big was your listening to not just the director, but the cinematographer? Because Ernest Dickerson was your cinematographer.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of Spike Lee's movies. And so you're in a new surrounding. It's not theater. It's a new world. And so did you rely a lot on Ernest to talk you through like where you were going, or when you talk about hitting your mark, how was that? Because a lot of times new actors are so nervous they're not listening, right?
Yeah. I was definitely nervous for sure, but no, I remember Ernest on set. But every set is different, as you know, and sometimes the DP is very vocal with the actors. Sometimes they're invisible, and Ernest was kind of in the middle. I took all my direction from the director. I knew that, so I had to listen to. And some directors don't want their DPs talking to the actors at all because it can be confusing. I don't think Michael Schultz, who directed Crush Group, was like that, but I just remember really all of my directions and who I listened to was the director. Now, if Ernest as a DP said, okay, we'll move a little bit to your left, move a little bit to your right, so it's going to be better lighting, definitely. But I just remember him kind of just really being respectful of the director.
You just said something. When we get on set as actors and we're ready to work, the person to listen to is...
The person to listen to is the director. The director is the general. The director, everything comes to the director. Every department head, script supervising, continuity, everything and everybody goes through the director and the director's vision, especially in films. TV, it can be a little more complex because you have producers in your ear, and a lot of times, like on a multiple episode series, directors come and go. It's really the actors who know the characters better than the directors do, and the producers stay. So it gets a little complicated, but yet and still, you want to listen to the director first. I mean, I've had directors on shows sometimes. I just, I felt like they got the job because they were somebody's friend, and they didn't necessarily know what they were doing. I've been playing the character for years. I know better than you do about the character, but I always try to give respect first, unless they lose that respect.
So you're on a show as a regular. You got a guest director giving you direction, and it's off. And how diplomatic are you with the director to let them know it's off, or how do you handle a situation like that?
Yeah, I'm very diplomatic because I don't believe in embarrassing people and humiliating people. It's not even necessary. So how I handle it is I'll ask them, maybe gently challenging them, but not to challenge them to embarrass them. But I'll ask them how to explain that to me, because it doesn't make sense to me, depending on what the specifics are of the situation. But I saw it differently. But I'll always, again, because the director, especially when you're doing series, you're working on one episode where that director is prepping for 2 weeks later or next week later. So he's dealing with all the producers, all the writing staff. They've had all the production meetings, so they know what the big picture is better than we do, even on the series actors, even if you're the lead on a series. So I always want to give them that opportunity first. So just explain this to me. What are you looking for? Because that doesn't make sense to me, but I'm open. So no, I always try to be diplomatic. It's just showing respect. And then, sometimes, directors show their ass, and then, and then you're like, okay, then I'm not going to give you that respect. But that's very rare. That's very rare, because the balls need to
That's right. So for you people watching, many years ago, in full disclosure, Blair is one of my dearest friends. I've known him over 36 years. Blair was the only sensible friend I had at the time, and I used to act out. I would just give people a lot of guff. And one time I had an audition. Well, it wasn't even an audition. It was a go-see, a meet with Oliver Stone. And I got there at 8 a.m. and I'm waiting, and I was dressed. I didn't know what I was going to be talking about, but I was ready. And he's walking out for like an hour. He's just being cash and just, had nowhere to go. And so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, all these women start coming in. They had never acted before. And I'm asking people questions like, what agency are you with? Who are you with? Oh, I'm not with anybody. The casting director saw me at the tennis court and asked me if I wanted to be in a movie. I was at, someone else said, oh, I was in the supermarket, and this little short guy said, hey, do you want to be in a movie? And so wow. There were like 5 of us who were actors, and then there were like maybe 20 women in the room who had never acted before. So now I'm mad. I'm mad, Blair. That's what started it. I'm mad. So now it is almost 10 o'clock. I finally get in the room. I sit down. I give the man my picture and resume. And I'm like, okay, just have fun, just be nice. Don't make a scene, just be nice. And he never looked at my picture or my resume, and he goes, do you speak Spanish? I said, well, if you would turn over my picture and look at my resume, you would know that I speak Spanish. And then he said, why are you busting my balls? I said, because your balls need to be busted. And we got into it. And I never went back for anything that Oliver Stone did. But but this was the best part. I get out of there. I call Blair. I'm so upset. And I'm telling Blair, this guy did blah, 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 blah. And I'm going on and on. And I told him, Blair, because your balls need to be busted. And Blair goes, why would you say that to the director? Well, first of all, no one had ever asked me why I behaved badly with a director or someone regarding work. And that's when I knew I had a really good friend named Blair Underwood, because Blair would challenge me. And so, and I never, if someone came at me the wrong way, my street sense was to come back. And I had to learn that as a new actor, and I have been doing, I want to say at that time, maybe I had been working for about 7 years as an actor, but I had never been disrespected like that. So I went right to the gutter. But my friend Blair kind of cleaned me up. He got that edge off of me a little bit more, not all the way, but a little bit more. So I
know. Thank you for that. I know the answer, but would you do that again?
No, because now I have
important for them to hear that. Yeah.
Well, now I have better tools, right? I think sometimes as a new actor, we don't have the tools. And we don't have the wisdom or the common sense to just watch. And young people need to know that they'll be rude. They'll say rude stuff to you. And the best you can do is just look at them and go, they have a problem. It's not with me. And I'm not going to fight with them, unless of course, that's the character. Because sometimes you will get a director that wants to see how you're going to go. He doesn't, I had that with Robert Blake when I did a TV show with him, and he came at me in the audition, and I went right at him too. He says, this is my girl. This is my girl. So you just have to, if it's the character, if the character is scrappy, if the character is tough, and they come at you a certain way, and they are very experienced, and I would only say this if the director is really, really experienced, they're looking for something. They're trying to pull something out of the actor that you're already in process. They got you in the middle of process. We're not into niceties. They want to know, can you carry that role? Are they going to have to replace you? So, so that's my answer to your question.
Yeah. I figured as much, but it's good to hear. It's good to put it out there.
But yeah, so let's talk about the tools that actors need when they first get in the business, because we just talked about the feeling, you think what I loved that you said was how you had your little mantra when you came to New York. You were, I am going to work in this business. I'm going to work. I'm going to work. I'm going to work. And so many years later, you have not stopped working. Your work ethic has been impeccable. Um, but you also came with certain tools when you came to New York that a lot of actors don't come with. So can you talk about some of those tools you brought with you to New York?
Yeah, well, the tools were just really training in the theater. I mean, that kind of encompasses a lot of it, a lot of it. But in terms of the work and the approach to the work, that all came from, my training at Carnegie Mellon for 2.5 years. In the middle of my third year, as you know, I left. And prior to that, doing plays in high school and the dinner theater I told you about, all of that was training for the training in college. So, when I came to New York, I kind of had that training and that understanding of how to build a character, technique, how to build a character, how to find a character, how to do backstory, when not to do too much backstory. When are you doing too much? What do you need to tell this story? And then fleshing it out more so you can get deeper. But you don't need to know, like, from the time the character necessarily was 2 or 3 or 4, maybe from the time they're 14 or 15. But finding all that, what is the approach to the work was, I think, the main thing. The main thing I brought with respect to the craft. And the other thing which was I'm just grateful for, this the family I had. My dad was a retired Army colonel and Black officer in the 60s and 70s. And being raised in that family gave me a certain amount of humility, but also not being intimidated by rank or privilege or celebrity. So I was with you when you said to Oliver Stone, your balls need to be busted. So I just would have handled it a little different. But to challenge those, just not be a respected person just because you have a title or you have so much money in the bank or you run a studio or a network exec, but to have that certain amount of confidence that you walk with.
But you also came with integrity. You came with kindness. You came with respect of persons. And you also weren't a fool. Like you were not into the dangling carrots, where a lot of young actors, I think, fall prey to that. Back in the day, not today, but back in the day, they would say, "Hey, come to my hotel room," or "Hey, you meet somebody on the street. I'm a actor. I'm this. I'm that. I can give you a job," and people fall prey to that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh and, yeah. All the time. Thankfully, like you're right. We see less and less of that because since the Me Too movement and just the time and days we live in, I don't see much of it at all, really, that I know of, that I hear of anymore.
You also were centered in God.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that is important, to be centered in something bigger than yourself. So what, this is a job. This is the job I chose to do. But this business is not going to eat me alive.
That's right. That's right. I am passionate about being an actor, being a storyteller, a director, producer. I'm passionate about that. But it is what I do for a living. It's not my life. And that balance, to your point, is kind of what has helped me keep my sanity in this industry. To have that balance. And you're right, being a Christian, God is, at the forefront of all of that. And understanding where our talents, our gifts, our opportunities, where it all comes from. It's not from us. We don't create that. And sometimes you need to be reminded of that. It's so funny. You've been watching the Olympics?
No, I
Okay. All right. all right. Well, anyway, I was watching Noah Lyles, who's won the 100 meters, supposed to run he wanted to win the 200 meter, also hadn't been done in, I think, since Usain Bolt. But anyway, he's very outspoken, some would say arrogant, and he didn't win the 200 last night. And I remember thinking, I said, sometimes you can talk. I mean, to be overly confident, confidence won't, but to be overly confident and be able to back it up, that's one thing. But even still, there's one person I can think of who did it flawlessly, who could be overly confident and you still embrace him. That's Muhammad Ali. It's a tricky thing. But anyway, I say all that to say, yesterday he was diagnosed with COVID 2 days before. He still ran the race. He did not win the gold. He came in third place. And I said, sometimes God has a way of humbling you. You can talk all kinds of stuff about how I'm going to be the first man. I'm going to be embarrassed. Everybody else is going to be depressed when I come around the corner. Okay, that you have so much in your control, but you couldn't control catching COVID and how that affected you. So I say all that to say that's been a lot of conversation today, just about that race in the Olympics. But I mean, there's a greater power, I believe, than some. There's something greater than the sum of all of its parts. And whatever your belief is, I think it comes in handy, and it behooves us to not believe that we are the be all and end all.
Well, you also, just your personality, you undersell and over deliver. You're always somebody who comes in quietly and then you overachieve what people think you could do. It's kind of like that scripture that says, he gives you above and beyond what you could hope to expect. And I would tie that to you in that's your personality. You come in very gentle, but you take care of business. You always deliver. You are so thoughtful and so meticulous in your work. So in watching you, like at a couple of rehearsals when you were working on Broadway, and seeing how you took your time, you take time with stuff. You're not rushing. You're discovering. So I want to talk to you about your rehearsal process, and if you could talk to us about the difference, how you tackle rehearsal process on stage versus screen when you don't have that kind of time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying what you said. All of that. Thank you, Nicole, Lydia. I call her Nicole, y'all. So man, I crave the rehearsal time. Of course, in theater, and doing a play on Broadway, especially, you have 5 weeks of rehearsal. Markedly different from any film and television. Of course, when you do camera work, you come to the set ready to shoot that day. No matter how high or low or how deep and wide that character is, the ranging of emotions, how long your monologues may be, how many words and lines you have, you come to work, you're going to shoot that day, and what you commit to film is going to last forever and ever. Amen. So you have to be ready. The beauty of theater is to have 5 weeks of discovery, to use your word, and to explore and to fail, to try things and make mistakes and adjust and adapt. And not just yourself, but to do that with an ensemble of actors. It's magical. That's why the theater is my first love. My first professional love is theater. God willing, I'll do theater to the day I die. But also, I love film and television because the work you do lasts forever. The great thing about theater is, once you beyond the rehearsal process, once you're in performance, you always can improve upon it the next night, the next night, the next night. But it's like somebody said, I don't know if it's a poem or something, but it's like when you do theater, it's like handwriting in the sand when the shore comes and wipes it away every night when the curtain goes. It's gone. Unless you may have given the most brilliant performance, but unless somebody was in that theater and saw it, unless they happened to film it, which they rarely do in Broadway especially, it's gone. So yes, you get the chance to recreate it. That's the beauty of it. But it's also nice to be able to work in a medium like film, television, camera work, where you can do the work, bust your chops, and just know it's there, it's documented, it's there forever for your great, great, great grandkids who you'll never meet to be able to watch.
So let's talk about breaking down the scripts for TV and film. When you get a script, what's the first thing you do?
For film and television or in general?
No, just film and television, because I think stage is a little different. But because film and television, you don't have the time. You just talked about how quick it is.
You don't have as much time, but you got to take the time. When I was doing a couple of shows, I was number one on the call sheet. City of Angels and Ironside comes to mind. And when you're in every scene, it's challenging. I remember I was doing a scene with this one guy. He said, "Bruh, you like in every scene of this episode?" And I was like, "Yeah, I always go to #gratitude." I say, "Yeah, but I'm grateful." He said, "I said it's a blessing." don't know, you might want to bleep this out. He goes, yeah, without missing the beat, he said, yeah, it's a motherfucker too. You ain't lying. And it is, because it's not just the hours you put in on the set. Every night I would go home and prepare for the next night. But what I would do in terms of breaking down the script in television especially, I still, even if you don't have the time, you got to take the time. I would try to read the script from beginning to end, so I know what the story is. If I'm not in a scene, but somebody's giving information in a scene that I'm not in, it affects how I react and respond, maybe the scene after that. So I got to know what the whole story is. So I definitely would take that time, read the story from beginning to end. Then I would look at the call sheet to see when am I shooting certain scenes. And I learned to just kind of break it down from week to week. Because usually in television, it takes 8 days on an average to do one episode. So I want to know what are the first 5 days? And then what is the first day? So I'll work on those scenes on the first day, and then the second day, and then subsequently after that. So you're most prepared when it's time to shoot. If I'm not shooting the most difficult scenes until next week, I'm going to wait till the weekend to really dive into that work and do that work and break down, those characters and those lines. But I used to always pull friends, family, my kids, anybody who I could, just to run lines. And it wasn't until I was doing Othello. Did you come see Othello down in San Diego?
No, I didn't even know you did Othello in San Diego.
What are you talking about?
I did not know. I did not know, Blair.
I'm telling you, listen, I think that was one of the highlights of my career.
Wow.
Doing Othello with
because I would have been there. I would have been there.
I know.
Would have driven down.
I know how that happened. But remember Richard Thomas, who played John Boy in the Waltons? He played Iago, who was amazing. But anyway, it was during that time. This is 2014, where I was doing. There were a lot of students in the cast, master class, not master class, master degree, and they were in the show. But anyway, they were a younger group. They turned me on to these apps where you can now record stuff. And I do that now. It's a Rehearsal Pro is the one I use. So now that changed everything on how I prepare. Just to be able to have everything in the app recorded, and I just play it back to myself. And it's just repetition.
So, okay, so let's talk about technology, because when you started, we didn't have the technology we have today. So just in the last couple of years, because of COVID, technology has just blossomed like 100 times.
We're doing right now.
Right? That's right. And so how do you utilize technology now in your acting, in addition to the rehearsal apps?
The main thing is the rehearsal app. And it's really, I've taught Octavia Spencer too, when we did the Madam C.J. Walker story, really turned me on to it. She was really, she used it all the time. I was like, man, I got to start using that. But I tell you, the biggest thing, I directed a film called Viral about 3 years ago. And again, it's always the younger generation. Janine Mason, who played my wife in the show, in the movie. She turned me on to scriptation, I think. Scripts, yeah, I think it's scriptation. I'll find it. But anyway, long story short, it's an app where you take your script, you put it in there, and then you can just push a button and it highlight and put your character, and it highlights all your characters. So it's so much easier now. Whenever I get a script, highlight my lines, and I send it over to PDF Expert, PDF Pro, PDF Expert, and in that, this has been a game changer. I'm able to write everything. I can write mine on the iPad. That was the other thing during Viral. This was in 2021. I'm shooting this. My DP's got everything on his iPad. I'm like, yo, man, we're shooting. I'm like, how you doing that? 'Cause I'm looking at he's writing on the iPad, and he's doing everything on the iPad. I was like, man, and I saw how efficient it was. And in that movie, Sarah Silverman is one of the leads, and Alfre Woodard. And we had one scene that was now like 4 weeks in, and I got my iPad the next day, and it was a game changer. In every way, and being able to access scenes, being able to put, because I was directing and the male lead, so being able to kind of put pictures together with script and whatnot to be able to communicate. Because as a director, the most important thing to do, it's two things: know your story, know your vision for the three things, know your vision for the story, and really most importantly, more than that, know how to communicate your vision to everybody, the department heads, first and foremost, your DP, your first AD, and your cast. If you don't know how to communicate, you don't know how to express yourself, you're screwed. So as an actor, as the lead actor, I knew I had to do my acting work to be prepared when I called action. Or if I was in the scene, my first scene would call action. But to be prepared, but also more than that, I had to be more prepared for every other question coming out of directing, from the wardrobe department, from the hair department, from the makeup department, from the acting department, from the DP's department. You got to have all those answers. So it's all about preparation. And it was, to your question about the technology, it was the iPad that helped me consolidate that and use it quickly. So I mentioned Sarah Silverman and Alfred Woodard. It was funny because we had this long scene between the three of us, and I'm using my iPad, and they came up like 8 pages, like an 8-page scene, and we're changing things as you do. You're marking this right. Let's change this line here. So they were doing what I usually did. You're writing it down. You're trying to find the page. You turn this page over here. You got 8 different pages. And I said, this iPad, I explained, this has been a game changer for me. But it was tough because I'd heard that for years. I just didn't want to change. I was used to my way of doing things. And of course, in that moment, we were about to shoot the scene. You couldn't do it. But it's got to be something with technology. I think that in order to stay ahead of the game, or at least up to speed, you got to learn the new ways. I think learn the new ways, and you can always have the choice to dismiss it and not use it. But at least know it's there. And a lot of this technology has improved how effective and efficient we can be.
And learn AI. Learn AI. Not so it steals anything from you, but so that you can understand it and use it to your benefit. Because let me tell you, that's a game changer in itself. AI.
Well, tell me how much AI.
So let me tell you, first of all, ChatGPT, my friend, I use ChatGPT like my spitball advisor. I have ideas. I put it into ChatGPT. I said, "What do you think of this?" And it give me back stuff. So where I used to rely on a lot of people to bounce things off of ideas, I just go into ChatGPT, and if I'm not happy with what Chat tells me, I go to Perplexity, my new favorite friend. Perplexity. What? Perplexity AI is a monster. I love it. Because when I'm researching to interview, like I was, even though you're my friend, don't mean I know everything about you, like I didn't know about Othello. And so in going into Perplexity, I use that to give me a breakdown of what someone's done. Like I could type in, who is Blair Underwood, actor, director, producer? And then it will give me not only all this information, but it'll give me videos. It'll give me pictures on the side. So I can watch the videos to go, okay, let me see what I could use from there. Or they've already covered that. I'm not going to talk about that. So for me, watching the videos is exciting, because then I go, I'm not using any of that stuff, because I want my stuff to be fresh. So it was like when I pulled up your name, I got to see you do the Ancestry thing. And that was so amazing. So let me just tell you, the AI is
that's deep. I never even heard of that. So this is what I'm saying, being open-minded. Now I'm going to look into that.
And then we're taking just a minute for technology people. Gemini AI, which is that's Google's AI thing.
Write this down.
Yeah. Oh, I'll send it to you. Don't you worry. I'll send you my little list, and I'll put the list in for all of you people that want to get AI savvy, because we got to grow. We got to grow, or we're gonna go. So then there's Udio, which is a music generator. You can put it's udio.ai, and you can make music. There's another one called Suno, SUNO.ai. You can make music with that. You just tell it, I want a country song. Here are some lyrics. I want to have a choir singing. I want to have reggaeton. I want to have salsa. I want to have, some folks music. Yeah. And it will create a song for you.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. So I'm not saying, use it to get rid of people, but I'm saying use it as an artist so that you can prep. You can, if you've got ideas of music, but you don't know how to write music, this app could help you put something together. Incredible. And then when you take it to your producer, you could do it. Or if you're writing a script and you want to research how was it in the Congo in the 1930s, it's going to give you who was in charge then. It has taken ChatGPT. Well, more Perplexity. What I like about Perplexity is that it gives you footnotes, so it tells you where it got the information. Sometimes this is what it's called. Sometimes the AIs have hallucinations. They'll start telling you stuff that's not real. And this happened in Perplexity when I was looking for information on you. It was giving me something Denzel did. I said, no, Blair did not do this. This was Denzel. Let's correct it. And then it corrected. And you could tell it, this is not true. And you teach it. You train it. So anyway, I didn't want to get off in that. But as actors, we need to be operating on another level. We can't, we gotta have our stuff together. We gotta know technology, because it is not only on us, it is moving past us if we're not ready.
Well, I love what you do, Lydia. The fact I'm looking at your screen, and then you have your planner behind you, and just the work that the work that you're doing with actors of all stripes is critical. The great thing about this is I know just even the conversation of technology gives people agita sometimes and anxiety, because it has replaced and may continue to replace us in some ways. But the beauty of what we bring as actors is we bring a certain heart and soul that can't be replaced at this point in time.
It can never replace us.
There you go.
AI so it's important can never replace us, but it can help us. If I am training, if I'm doing a certain character that I have no clue of, I can just put stuff in there and it can feed me. It can give me sustenance to get me so that I can do that character. So that I'm not, it's like going back to being well prepared. You said that at the beginning. When you came to New York, you were well prepared. You had your training, and so many actors, because of social media, and they see influencers get these humongous numbers, then they go, well, it's easy for me. I just put the camera on, but they don't understand the process. First of all, being an influencer is a lot of work. It is like acting. You have to know your camera. You got, you can get away with a couple of viral videos, but to sustain, to be consistent, like you have been in your career, you've been so consistent. So I want to go back to, I didn't mean to veer off with the AI and stuff, but I want to go back to when you are breaking down your script and you use your technical apps to help you break down your scripts. What's the first thing you do?
To break down the script?
Yes, the first thing, when you get the script, what's the first thing you do?
Well, it always starts with the script. First thing is always read it from beginning to end. What is the writer telling us? That's where it starts. Because if you're the director, your job is to interpret that script. They always say there are 3 different movies. There's what's on the page, there's how it's interpreted when you shoot it, and then there's the movie that happens in the editing room. It can be 3 very different films or a TV show or episode. So the first thing I do is read the script, find out what is the story, what is the vision. And if we're talking about just as an actor, then I'm looking at it, how can I play my part, that puzzle piece in this big mosaic? How do I play my part to the best of my ability? Personally, I'm always looking for something that's going to challenge me, something that's different. I hate the feeling of repeating myself. So even if it's a character, like a film that's out right now, Long Legs, I played an FBI agent. I played a number of FBI agents, but it's a very different world. It's a very different environment. It's a very different genre. It's a horror film. So I hadn't done that. So that affects and informs how I approach the character. given the world that the writer has started first, and then the director's vision, and then how the director and the DP decide they're going to paint that picture. And it's always, I'm a visual learner, so I always, even like when I come on the set, this last project, the director, I came on, I think 4 days, there were 4 days in the shooting, so he had still shots that he could show me, this is what the world looks like. And it really did affect how I was playing the character, how I wanted to approach the character. But specifically, the first thing is read the script and get clarity on what the vision is, and then find out. And if you're the director, then you sit with it for a while. Well, what is your vision? How do you want to present this story? How do you want to tell the story? What are the shades, the tones, the emotionality of it? The highs and lows. You want to turn it into a comedy. You want to turn it into an action. Many ways to do all of that. And thinking ahead, how do you see the final product? That's going to affect, if you can think editing ahead of time, that's going to affect how you shoot it.
I'm gonna go down a side street for a minute, because you just brought up something about shades and tones, and that's something that's new in the last few years, that they actually have tone sessions for film when you're the director. That's important. When you started directing, and you started directing music videos, was that something that was even talked about? The tone and the shade of, the tone and the shade of something?
Yeah. It was more with the DP. The conversation with the DP is, at that time, what's the vibe? What's the vibe we're going for? Is it fast pace? Is it slow pace? Is it bright colors? And I started in the 80s doing music videos. It was all about bright colors and big hair and shoulder pads for women. But no, there's always a sense of, I was nervous when I first started directing I was like 85, 86. No, 90, that was 95. But I was concerned because I didn't have the technical prowess that I thought I needed to direct. And, it was a director who told me, so you don't have to know any of that. Your DP knows that. The more you learn, the better. Like, that's why I started getting serious about trying to understand the technical aspect of filmmaking. What is the camera? What does every crew member do? And I started asking, so I was doing LA Law, I started asking questions about, what do you do? And how does that work? Why do you put the camera there? Why are the lights here? I suppose over there. All that kind of stuff. So it kind of helped really start to understand the whole picture it takes to tell a story, film or television.
So what's the difference between shade and tone?
Shade, everybody's got a different opinion. Shade to me is it's a texture. Shade can speak to the visual. Okay, what's the shade? Is it darkly lit? You saw Long Legs, it's a very dark film. A lot of films today are dark. In the 80s, again, in the 90s, just the lighting itself was brighter, bolder colors. That's, to me, shade. Tone is the emotionality, to me. Tone is the emotionality of the piece, and also just the scenes that are constructed together to tell a story. And that's why you have tonal meetings. What is the tone of this scene? Individual scenes that make up an act, that make up an entire script. And that whole film has a different tone.
So you coming in as an actor to then start directing, you bring a different sensibility than a director who went to school just to direct.
Oh, yeah.
And so let's talk about that, because I always think that actors who direct, not to take away anything from pure directors, but I always think actors who direct are able to pull from actors in a way that elevates the project.
Yeah, I'm a little biased about that. I have so much respect for the greatest directors who were never actors. Most of the greatest directors have never acted. But most of the greatest directors have a tremendous respect for the craft. There are those, and I've heard, rumors of certain, usually action directors, where they treat actors like furniture. It's all about the shot. It's all about getting the action. But most of the best directors have a love affair with the craft of acting and with actors. So, I think to your point, exactly right. The language of acting, the language of character, the language of behavior, and character arcs, and objectives, and all of that, and understanding that, and understanding how to translate that, understanding that one of the worst things you can do is give an actor a line reading. That's insulting. And if those who don't know, if I hire you, if you're a plumber, and I hire you to fix my sink, and I'm gonna tell you what wrench to use and how you should turn it, the how of it all, it can be very offensive. If you're an actor, I shouldn't tell you. It's disrespectful to tell you how to make that scene work. All I need to tell you is what I'm going for. What is the result of the scene? And then it's the actor's job not to play for results. It's kind of tricky. That's one thing we learned in acting school. If you gotta have an argument, a blowout, you're gonna slam the door and walk out. You can't play the end of the scene, generic anger. It's all about the specificity of those dynamics. But there's those things that I think a director who has been trained as an actor, it can be an advantage. I think it most often is an advantage, just in terms of that you're able to communicate with the actors to tell the story, because it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Keenan Ivory Wayans told me this. I went to direct something. One of the first things I directed, he said, tell the story first. And he said, if you have great performances in a crappy looking movie, you got a great movie. If you have terrible performances in a great looking movie, you got a terrible movie. Focus on telling the story with the actors.
Let's go to storytelling, because actors are storytellers, just as directors are. So when you are looking at a character, how are you looking at the story of that character?
How do you mean? I'm looking at the character.
You get a character. Let's talk about the character you did in Longlegs, because he had a certain apathy to him. He was very dry, very methodical. Okay, we got to do this. We got to, he was about chasing the bad guy, but his humanity was not all intact. He was just about, we got to get this. We got to, we're losing time. So that when you are looking at the story of that actor, of that character, I'm sorry, when you're looking at the story of that character, there's almost like going back to the backstory. There's something that has made him that way. How you play the detective in Longlegs is different than how you play the lawyer in LA Law. It's different than how you play the husband in Madam C.J. Walker. It's different than how you played was it the corporal in A Soldier Story? The
captain.
The captain in A Soldier Story. They're all, it's all you, but they are all very different characters. And within those characters, to me, there's a story of that character. We may never know what it is, but you bring it to the stage, you bring it to the screen. You have made a story about this person. So when they come, they embody the story without even saying a word. I knew who the detective was. I knew who the guy in LA Law was. I knew who, every character you play is embodied in a story. So that's how I see it. I might be wrong, but that's how I see it. It's like, because you did your work, because you did all the back work, you come three-dimensional. A lot of actors just are reading lines. They're just coming in and they've memorized the lines, but there's no discovery. There's no, I don't feel their flesh. I don't feel their soul. I don't feel their spirit, and the really great actors. You talk about Meryl Streep. She's always bringing a story with her character. There's always a story. When you talk about Denzel, he always brings a story. He's different in everything. So I don't know if this makes sense, but if you can Um, and maybe that's not the right term. As an actor, I should know better, but that's what it feels like to me when I'm doing a character. I'm bringing a story of that character.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you want that. You, I feel like you almost have to make every character fully realized because you are a character. You're not an actor standing on a stage or an actor standing on a set. You are a character within this world telling a story and responding and reacting to what's happening in front of you. So yeah, you have to, and I appreciate you saying that, but you have to walk onto that set or stage as a fully realized three-dimensional character, human being, living and breathing with a whole history. That's our work, to create that character. But once you walk on that set in that scene and the director calls action or the curtain goes up, you have to be open and spontaneous to what is thrown at you in the reality of that moment. That's why I love theater so much, because we're all breathing the same air, the actors on the stage and the people in the audience. Something happens. I remember I went to go see Raising the Sun on Broadway. What? Chris, New York City, man. We're sitting there in the theater and these rats run under our seats and down the whole row. All the feet, all the knees go, wow, all the screaming is going on. I wasn't on stage at that point, but they took a beat for a second. We're all in the same space, feeling and hearing the same energy and dynamics. So that's what's beautiful. But when you've done the homework and you are fully realized when you walk on that set, then you can play. That's the most beautiful feeling, when you can be open to whatever is going to be said. It's like this conversation we're having right now. I'm responding specifically to what you're saying. You're listening right now. You're going to respond to what I'm saying, but it's in the moment. Because we have a life. We have history between us as human beings. And that's the job of actors, to make sure these are well-rounded, real life, breathing and living human beings in this space that we're sharing with an audience.
How can actors, when they're doing film and television, bring that same energy, that same discipline from the stage to the screen, whether it's a small screen or a large screen? How do they bring it? You got your words, you got all the lights, you got all these people around watching you, and you got to be present in the moment. You know, how do you bring it?
I think first and foremost, in order to bring something from theater to television, you got to know theater. I think first and foremost, you got to know theater. Do the work. If you're serious about your craft as a storyteller, as an actor, put your time in on the boards, on the stage, in the theater. That's my perspective. I'm an advocate for doing the theater work first, because then you understand that it's so much easier. It's so much easier to bring that to the camera, because the camera, it's smaller. If you can be bold and broad and project on theater, in the theater, it's so much easier to bring it down. If you learn camera work that is very subtle, to be able to crank that up vocally, to use the instrument of your vocal cords and your diaphragm and all of that, it's different. You're using your instrument in a completely different way, because you have to project and you need to translate your thoughts and your emotions and your gestures to a larger audience. So it's important first to know what theater is, what theater training is, if you're serious about it. Then you can easily transfer that to camera work.
And I'm reminded, you did a trip to Bountiful on stage, and then you brought it to the screen. How was that? I just remembered that you actually, we're talking theater and bringing it right to film.
That's a great question, because I had never done that before. Cicely Tyson, the trip to Bountiful, and Vanessa Williams. And we had done, she did the Broadway play first, Cicely Tyson, Vanessa Williams, and Cuba Gooding Jr. And then I played the part that Cuba did on Broadway on the tour. So we did the tour on stage first, and then we did the film version, which was just that. I'm glad we'd done those first. I mean, switching techniques is just like a different gear. But it was great to do that with the exact same words, the exact same story, and in this case, the exact same actresses playing opposite. It was fun. It was a fun exercise. I had never done that.
What did you learn from it?
That just because something works in the theater, I learned this. I thought maybe this might be the case, but I learned it for sure. Just because, you do week after week, you do plays for months at a time. So you get used to something that works so clearly. The audience always responds, and whether it's a joke, whatever it is, doesn't always work on camera. Not just because it's more subtle or smaller. It's just it's a different cadence. It's a different rhythm. When you have a live audience, it's going to break the rhythm and laugh. You hold for the laugh, and to ride that wave of laughter and pauses and all of that. It's a different rhythm. So it was very eye opening actually to like again to take the exact same script and words and lines and transfer it to a different medium. So yeah, so I another thing I learned was just be true to the character, because everything we're talking about is technique. Not everything we're talking about right now anyway, is technique. How you gesture, how you project, the technique of transferring that to the camera. But beyond all of that, it's really the honesty and authenticity of the character, the emotions. That just speaks to the how it comes out, how it's presented. As long as you know the character, that's the work, but it's also the easy part because you bring that to the context and the media.
You've done a lot of narration to films and TV specials. How do you translate your acting from being in front of the camera to now narrating a piece?
Yeah. The thing is, when you only have your voice to rely on and you only use your voice, it forces you to really pay attention to the melody and the levels and the colors of your voice and how you can change it differently. I think again for me, being trained in Shakespeare and doing Shakespeare in the Park in '93 with Kevin Kline, and it was Kevin Kline who told me, he said, I was doing something wrong. I'd done Shakespeare in college, but it was my first time in the real as a professional. And he said, you're doing something very contemporary. You're taking pauses and thinking in between the lines. So with Shakespeare, you have to think. I'm sorry, I was taking pauses in between the lines. He was saying you have to think in the middle of the lines as you're speaking, during the lines. Because if you do that, then you color the words and the inflections happen automatically within the lines. I was doing it, which is contemporary. You talk movies today, okay, then you think, you take a pause, then you talk again. But no, when you're dealing with the language and words, if you think the emotions and allow yourself to emote in the midst of the lines, it colors everything differently. Shakespeare, I love doing Shakespeare. Shakespeare is beautiful. It's exquisite. So that was such a great learning tool for whenever I started doing narration, to just rely on the voice, but not just the voice, but make sure you color the words as you're speaking. And it just gave me a whole nother way of approaching and telling those stories. Even if it's a car commercial or whatever it is, it's book narration, whatever it is. It was a great lesson learned, to learn how to color the words by thinking while you're speaking, basically.
What did you get from your very first acting teacher that you still use today?
My very first acting teacher was Mrs. Warren in Warren, Michigan, and she gave me confidence to get up on your feet. Lydia. It's always one thing to sit around the table, do the table work, talk about the script, but it's a different boogie when it's time to get up on our feet. Let's make it work. Well, let's do some blocking, figure out where we're going. So she just gave me the confidence to kind of just do that and be fearless in that. And I have to say, Miss Manning was my high school teacher. I just attribute so much to it. I'm so grateful to her because she just really gave me a sense of entrepreneurship within the world. She had her own theater company. She was my teacher in high school, but she had her own theater company outside of that. And she just taught me, really was the first inkling I had of understanding the business of show, the industry that is, in her case, theater.
Let's talk about the business of show, because I'm a big believer, as an actor, you are an entrepreneur. You are the CEO of your company. And no matter how many acting jobs you do, you are still the owner of your company.
That's right.
So when you started acting, how did you start? You learned from Mrs. Manning certain things. So let's talk about what you learned from her, as far as she had her own company, But what specifically did you recognize in watching her?
Cool. Well, there was that part, the entrepreneur aspect, but there was another thing just in terms of uh, the presentation. You know, I was in high school in Petersburg, Virginia, you know, a lot of Southern kids, and she was my English teacher in school, and she was adamant about speaking the King's English, articulating your words, talking through a sentence, finishing the words and finishing the lines, making sure that your grandmother underneath the clock in the back row could hear you and understand you. That was her biggest thing, and that really set the stage for me for the rest of my life. You know, we're storytellers as actors, directors, writers, but as actors, we're storytellers. We are communicators. We're professional communicators. And if I'm speaking to communicate to you a thought or an idea or a story, and you can't understand what I'm saying because I'm mumbling, you know, I'm not doing my job. So it was her who was, I mean, adamant about that. You know, it was all these little black kids, you know, in the South, we all had little Southern accents and everything, and maybe might be mumbling our words and whatnot, but she was very clear that if you're going to be in this class, or if I'm going to cast you in this play, you must be able to speak properly, in that in so much as we can understand you, that we must understand you, the audience. So I give her a lot of this. She was all about excellence, period, dot. Don't get on that stage. Don't even talk to me unless you're in the pursuit of excellence.
What were some of the business takeaways you got when you got to New York?
The business, the business takeaways. Well, it was just that it's a business. That you don't need to take anything personally. It's not really necessarily about you per se. It's about this is how they look at us as actors. What can you do? Can you do anything for me in the pursuit of telling my story, in the service of a story, the service of this movie, of this TV series, of this play? You know, you may give the most incredible audition. Doesn't always matter. Maybe you're too tall to go against the leading lady, or too short. Maybe the casting director didn't like the color of your socks that day. You know, maybe you gave a boss audition, but you know the studio might have another actor under contract. They got to give that actor that particular job. So there's always, and I mean almost always, in this industry, so many different variables now that come into if you're cast or not. Almost the least of which is how good you are. Almost the least of which, you know, you got to be great. You have to be great, but you have to be great for when it's your moment and it's your time when everything aligns. And it does align. It does happen. You know, but that's why this is not an easy business. That's why, you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You know this. It's not an easy business, and it takes a lot. It takes a thick skin to deal with the rejection that comes into play. But that was my first lesson when I got to New York, is that this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and if we don't cast you, get over it. It's not personal, and even if it is personal, get over it. Next.
What was your biggest acting rejection that ended up being something that blessed you? You know, sometimes we have a challenge, or we get something horrible that happens to us, but we are then able to turn it around and use it for good. You know, it's like the Bible says, what the devil intended for evil, God has worked out for your good. So
yeah,
where did you have your biggest rejection? Maybe young, maybe you were like, oh, I just knew I was going to get this. It didn't come, but then you saw light at the end of the tunnel.
No, I think my biggest sense of rejection was when I'd done Ironside. This was a show on NBC. It was a very famous show in the 70s. Raymond Burr was the star. He was a detective who was in a wheelchair. I very much wanted to do this because my mother was in a wheelchair for 20 some years. You know, she passed away in 2020 in the middle of COVID. But Bob Greenblatt, who was the head of NBC, had come to see Streetcar. And after that, he came backstage and said, I want to create a show for you. So I said, cool. So we met like the next day in New York. And out of that meeting came a year-long production deal with NBC to create. I could bring them ideas as a producer, or they bring ideas to me and we find something. So literally in the last month after a year, I brought things and then they shut down. They brought some things I wasn't crazy about. And then the deal was almost over. And he said, listen, it was NBC Universal. In our coffers, we have Ironside as an IP, intellectual property. We want to do it. If you want to do it, I'll do it. I was like, well, yeah. And I remember people saying, like, do you want to play somebody in a wheelchair? And again, I very much wanted to because of my mother's, very much an homage to her. And, long story short, we did the pilot. And this is the thing, too, Lydia, you know this so well. In one sense, it was a great disappointment, which felt like a rejection. But in another sense, to have the production deal is a victory. To have them have something come out of it, like a tangible project, was a victory. To do the pilot, it's not guaranteed they're going to do any episodes. To do the pilot was a victory. To get picked up to series was a victory. To get an order of 13 was a victory. So I had to remember that. when we ended up doing the show, I think shot 9, they aired 3 and pulled the plug and canceled it. Because I was, the lead in the show. Your faces on billboards all over the place, inside the buses and posters and everything. And so it's very much your face, your name, your brand, that when they pulled the plug and didn't give it much of a chance, it felt like rejection. It felt like, yeah, we don't want you, or, nobody tuned in, and which is BS. I found later on they make a lot of money overseas. And then I think they still today use the Nielsen rating, which I don't trust, believe, but it doesn't matter. So it was at the end of when they pulled the plug. I remember I got really sick, like the next 3 days. And I think I had all this tension built up in me, and feeling, even those first 3 or 4 weeks, the pressure of having to succeed, the pressure of when the ratings came in, or the overnight ratings, and, the numbers were what they were. Then each week they got lower and lower, and just the pressure of that, having to deliver. So they just pulled the plug. And I feel like if you know anything about Hollywood history, there's so many shows, Friends being one, I think so many, The Mash being another one, that were not successes right out of the box. Seinfeld being another one, that because the network stayed with them, they became successes because the audiences found them. So, you know all this, but it doesn't matter. So it was that year, Nicole, where I told my agents, I said, I don't want to see a camera for a year. I want to take a year off. I don't want to talk about auditions. I don't want to talk about camera. Well, I want to audition, but I want to talk about any shows or anything or movies. I needed, because it was a gut punch. I needed time to myself. I think I was a little depressed. I felt a little broken at the time. And that was the year where I said, I don't do this for ratings. I don't even do it for a huge paycheck, a big paycheck, but not a huge paycheck. But it was that time where I took time off. I went to Israel, and literally I got the offer to do Othello. 2 days from going to Israel, I said, whoa, that was terrifying. Because Othello is something like, it's one of the greatest roles, Shakespeare's greatest roles. A lot of Black actors play that role. I said, well, I'll do that maybe. It was always something down the road, one day. And I remember talking to a friend of mine, we went to Carnegie Mellon together, and she said, actually, Othello was about 30-something. So Othello was about 10 years younger than you are now. So you can play that role. I said, yeah, damn, okay. So I said, listen, I'm going to Israel. I'm literally going to the promised land. Let me pray about it. So I did. And during that time, I just remember hearing myself tell my kids all the time, do the things that scare you. Don't run away. Do the things that scare you. So that's why I did that. And that was that year, right, at Othello. And later that same year, I did Trip to Bountiful. So I went back to the theater, basically, and discovered theater again, and discovered my love, refound my love of the craft of the work of telling stories and creating characters and living those lives on stage. And once I reconnected with that, and then I was ready to get back. And it was December. I got a call and went and did Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV series. And then I was okay to see a camera again. Okay. I made friends with the camera again.
I love you, my camera. I love you. So this is important, because this is the stuff that we don't talk enough about, is the rejection, is the when something doesn't pan out to your liking, or you have such high expectation for a role and it fizzles. And it happens to every actor. Or you get fired. You take a job and you get fired, and how devastating that is to, you get the job, you're excited, and then you get the call from your agent. If you're lucky enough, you get on the set. But sometimes you get the job, and then the agent calls it, oh, they decided they wanted somebody else. And you had your hopes set for that part. You had your, it was in your mouth. The taste was in your mouth. Or you get there, They changed the lines on you. It's not what you thought you were going to be doing, and you're struggling to try to make that one line work. When you got cast, you had a couple of scenes, and now you're reduced to one line, and you cannot make it work, and they let you go. And then sometimes you get on set, and maybe the star of the show is not liking you. They're just not liking you. I mean, I've been on a set where the actor, well, he was the star. He wasn't an actor. He was just the star. And literally, I saw him. Yeah, it's a difference, right? It's a difference.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And he went around the table, and I saw him every day picking off one of the actors. Every day he was picking off one actor. Like he would zero in on that actor and just, I don't like him. The next day we had a new cast member. Then the next day was the next person. And it finally came to me. It was like 10 days in, and I walked out of there feeling so proud. I said, I lasted 10 days. I lasted 10 days. And I saw, sometimes you can see it coming. You can smell it. I was like, this guy is not a happy man. And so anybody on the set who looks happy, he's taking them down.
Wow.
But there are those dynamics that happen, and actors have to, you have to, I don't want to say it's having a tough skin, because if you need the vulnerability in order to do your work. When they say have a tough skin, I don't think that's the correct phrasing, because we need to access all of our emotions, right? We need to be able to access as actors. And if you've got a tough skin, then you're apathetic to everything going on. Yeah, well, I'm just doing the lines. I'm just, it's like, no, you need to understand that, take it in, have your moment, but understand that it wasn't about you. And I think as actors, I think that's a class that should be taught with acting classes. It's not about you. You are part of the tapestry, but you're like the thread in the tapestry. You're the blue thread or the red thread, but you know what? They may want orange thread. Maybe they're going to replace the blue thread with the orange thread, because they are looking at a tapestry. They're looking at the canvas. You might be the best person for the job, but the person you're playing opposite is 7 feet tall. You're not going to work. I remember early on that with leading men, they would have very specific ask for the leading ladies. If it was someone like a Tom Selleck, who was very tall, they didn't want somebody petite. They wanted somebody who could, not be too small, unless that was the picture. I remember when Michael J. Fox was really hot. No actress could be over 5'2", because he was short. So it is understanding that in this business, and you made this point about being of service. You come as an actor to be of service, not to be served. And I think that, can you talk about that? Because I think that's the big monster in the room.
Well, that's where it lives. I mean, to be of service to the story, and to be of service to that character, even. And that can be tricky sometimes when you're playing a character that is not beloved, who's a bad guy, quote unquote, or a villain, but you still have to service that character. And you have to find a way to find something in that character that you can connect to, and that you can at least understand. You don't have to like it. That's a commentary from the actor to the character, but you have to get up under that character's skin and become that person. So that's all in service of that character. But there is a sense of, we are a cog in the wheel as actors, and we're a necessary, critical part of telling that story. And we're not furniture. I mean, what we bring to that story are our human emotions, our intellect, our thought processes. All of that is vital to mesh with the other actors in the ensemble to tell this story. So, you can't tell a story without actors unless it's animated. Even that, you need the voices of actors, unless it's AI. But it is always about. It's not about you. And then there's the aspect of when you may find success in this industry, and people thrust that moniker upon you, like you're a celebrity or a star or whatever else, then there's that other responsibility of not taking yourself too seriously and being reminded that yet and still you are of service to the story. You're not there to be served all the time. But that's a tricky concept for everybody to embrace.
Well, it's going back to the scripture that says, think highly of yourself, but not too highly. So that if we come thinking highly, not, we're not slaves, we're not subservient, but we're not better than anybody else. And
that's right.
And that we all hold space in the world. All of us come to hold space, not to, some people do it better than others. Some people try to take the space. Yeah, I was at my favorite little bakery yesterday, and this woman kept getting in my space. Like literally, there was all this room, but yet she kept I'd stand in one area to wait for my food, and she was like right on top of me, and she did it 3 times, and I said, "Do I say something? Do I comment?"
Did you say something?
Said, no, I'm moving away. I'm learning to not, but I observed what was going on. And it is that thing as actors, we observe, we watch, and then we know when to proceed, when to act, and when to just say, I'm just going to be quiet. You say whatever you want to say. I don't have to say. And you are very good at that. You will let people talk themselves under the table, and you will go, and I love that about you, Blair. I love that about you. So
hey, you need to express yourself. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but you've always been very good at never feel you've held space. I heard someone say this about you, and I wrote it down because I thought this is so accurate. I was watching an interview on you, and the guy said, you have defined masculinity.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that is, if I had to say something about Blair Underwood, that would be it, because you are a gentleman, you are caring, you are compassionate, yet you are firm. When you don't like something, you ain't going for it. No,
that's for sure.
No,
that's for sure.
But you never. And I think this is a testament to your parents, to your mom and dad, who amazing people, and that is that you have always treated everybody equally. I've never seen you come in a room and judge anybody ever. In all the years that I've known you, I've never seen you. I've seen you notice things and move away, but I've never seen you just come at somebody with an attitude like you don't belong here. But that you've been very good at, you are such a great observer of humanity and what's going on and how people interact, and you have such a calmness to put out people's fire. If someone comes in the room too hot, you have such a way of just lowering their flame. And I so appreciate that. I've learned so much from you. No, I have, because how valuable your skill sets have been for me to watch you engage with people. You coming from New York to LA. Can you talk about that a little bit? And then I'll come back to this, because I think this is really important for actors. When you came to LA, you got a lot of opportunities pretty quickly. Talk about that. Talk about what that felt like for you like maybe your first 2 years, things really just coming for you,
Yeah.
and then stopping, things coming and then stopping and then coming again, because it wasn't just a smooth sailing. But maybe the first 2 years, how was that like for you?
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, Nicole, thank you for everything you just said. I don't take that lightly, and I really credit my parents for that and the way we were raised, and also really my parents for sure, but my father's with respect to being a man. I often say my mentors are my father as a personal hero, Sidney Poitier as a professional hero, and Bishop Kenneth Almer as a spiritual hero to me. So I'm grateful. These are men who walk with integrity and respect and regard of themselves and everybody around them. So I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, no, those first 2 years, things happened really fast for me. I mean, literally, it was my second day in New York. I could not afford to stay at Carnegie Mellon in my college, my junior year. So I knew I was leaving in Christmas of '84. I moved to New York January of '85. Stayed at a friend's house, Pat Prescott, who's a very well-known radio DJ, not DJ, but host for many years. Phenomenal. But I ended up staying on her couch. I just needed a place to stay and whatnot. But yeah, so the second day in New York, I was able to get on the Cosby Show just as a walk-on. But that's what brought me to New York. I was looking for a job, and I got that gig, and that opened up doors. And then they called me back for a second episode where I played Robin Gibbons' boyfriend, and then Crush Group happened. This is all '85. This is all early '85. I moved to New York January of '85, and I got cast in Crush Group. As I said, the movie came out October of '85, and then I stuck around. After Crush Group, I did One Life to Live. I did a soap opera for 3 months. And I loved that whole process of it. But I just knew that people in the industry, casting people in the industry, and really a large part of the audience had a hard time allowing actors to go from daytime to nighttime television, from a soap opera to primetime television. And I didn't want to get saddled with that. I have respect for everybody that I worked with. But I just knew the industry was very closed-minded with that. And then in those days, the '80s and '90s, to go from television to the big screen was very rare. It's unheard of. George Clooney did it and did it well. And then it became, then with Netflix and streaming, it became less and less of an issue. But it was those things, Cosby Show twice, and then Crush Group that opened up doors for me. And it was a show called Downtown, a series on CBS, starring Michael Nuri, Mariska Hargitay, Robert Englund, Millicent Martin, and myself, that brought me out to LA. Because I just knew I didn't have any money. And I said, I need a job to bring me out to LA. Did the pilot, came back to New York, they picked up the pilot that brought me out here. We did 13 episodes, and they canceled it after 13. But that's what brought me out here. And I set my roots here from that point on.
So right after that show got canceled, you were looking for work.
Yeah.
For a period. That it wasn't like, oh, you've made it because you were in a movie and you were in a TV show. So talk about that, because then after that there was a wait period, and then stuff started happening.
Well, I remember I was struggling. I was staying with a friend, Myra Weston. She had an apartment downtown in Los Angeles, and she let me stay in the back room, and she and her boyfriend lived in the apartment. And I didn't have to pay a lot of rent, which was great. But it was tough. Once the show was canceled, I remember somebody saying, you can get unemployment because you've earned it. And at the time, I was staying at a friend's how I lived, renting a back room. This was before Myra, actually, in the Valley, San Fernando Valley. And I was glad I lived way out there because I looked into it and I needed money. And a couple things happened then. I ended up going out to Granada Hills, going out to the unemployment office. I just remember having a hat on and didn't want anybody to recognize me from the soap opera to get that unemployment check. And I remember a friend of mine, he kind of got pissed. He said, yo, man, you earned that money. Go get it. Get your pride out the way. Go get that money as unemployment. So I just remember that feeling of, trying to do, this goes later on to the entrepreneur side of things. Do what you can for yourself so you're not always waiting for somebody to call you. And then also at that point, you get fan mail from really the soap opera. Nobody really saw much of the series I did out here. But I was excited because I'd gone from daytime to nighttime. But I remember sometimes I get fan mail at my house. I don't even know how that happened back then. But I remember how uplifting it was when I got a letter, fan mail. to the point of it meant too much to me. And I said, I don't want to rely on fan mail or the public to buoy me or uplift me or have a need to be seen or to have somebody write something. This is long for social media. But I remember that very vividly, and it just helped me kind of put that in place to not rely on public perception or public embrace of you. So it was soon thereafter that I ended up moving downtown LA. And it was around that time that I got a call from the producer of One Life to Live. I'd moved up, living in LA. I'd gone from daytime to nighttime, which was a big deal. I didn't want to go back to daytime. I love the idea of it, but I just didn't want. I knew what the industry would say. Okay, well, he's a soap opera actor, so we're not going to cast him at nighttime or movies. Got a call from Paul Roush, who's the executive producer of One Life to Live. He said, "We want to bring your character back." And I had just auditioned for LA Law, which was the #1 drama on television. Brand new out the box, the very first season, the end of their first season. And I said, oh man, and I needed money. And it was a nice offer on the table. I said, can you give me 2 days? I had already auditioned. I was waiting to hear back if I got the part. And anyway, long story short, by the grace of God, I ended up getting LA Law, and I did not make that move back to daytime, which from a creative point, I was all about, let's have fun. I enjoyed it. But it was the best possible thing that could happen because that show, LA Law, I ended up being on for 7 years. And it absolutely changed my life, changed the trajectory of my career. And there is still doors open to this day that were open because of the success of LA Law back in the day.
Let's talk about your mindset. You hit on it a little bit. Your mindset going into New York and then your mindset coming into Los Angeles, because you have a very strong mindset and a strong will. You're quiet, but you're very laser. You're like laser, like this is what I'm doing. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna direct. I'm gonna, just from knowing you when you first came out to LA, and seeing how you were different from other actors that I knew. You weren't all over the place. You didn't have the need. First of all, you were very good with your finances. You didn't have the need to show us you had gotten a job. You didn't have the need to go, if I said, hey, I'll make something to eat. Okay, great. And I'll do the dishes. And, we go to market and get whatever was needed. And we just sit and have fun talking about acting. You didn't have the bad manners or bad behavior that sometimes actors fall into when they've worked a couple of jobs. All of a sudden they're telling you, yeah, well, me and George Clooney, we're like this and we do this, and our community is very small to begin with. It is the acting community is very small. And if you're in one particular group, it's even smaller. So everybody's business. It ain't, it's like to hear somebody say, well, I'm good friends with George Clooney. Yeah, I know his mother. Yeah, let's go. What are you telling me? That's not impressive to me. but that you were very bringing your good manners. We're going back to, you brought your good manners with you. You were very respectful of people. You were not trying to dress to impress. You weren't trying to fake it till you make it. You were just centered in, I'm an actor. This is what I do. No shame. There was no shame attached. I never felt imposter syndrome. I never felt like if you walked in it, I never saw it. I never heard it. I never heard anything come out of your mouth that was not edifying. So I want to talk about your mindset in the early days.
Thank you again for that. The one thing I can share with your audience is, more than anything, you have to believe in yourself more than anything. You have to believe in your skills, your talents. You got to be on your own team. I heard my son say that. He said, you got to be on your own team, because there's too much out here in too many ways, shapes, and forms where people will try to tear you down and dismiss you and reject you, tell you you're not good, make you feel that you're not good enough, or that you have no business being in that room on that stage, on that set. So you have to believe it first. And I thank you for saying what you said, but that's the only way I knew. Part of it was also being young and dumb and naive, to not know really know that at that time that you're asking about, to really know the pitfalls of the business, to really know that there's a chance I wouldn't be successful in this business. I just didn't believe it. I genuinely just didn't believe it. And I believe that was my race to run, and it wasn't about in relationship to anybody else. So I'm no better than anybody else. I'm no worse than anybody else. Just give me the ball, coach. Just put me in, and then from that, and hopefully I'd have something to build upon. As it turned out, but yeah, I think really a part of it was just being naive. I did believe in myself, and I just didn't. I figured I'm young, but also because of so many of the actors when I was doing dinner theaters in Virginia, that some had come to New York and then it didn't work out and they came back to regional theater, and so I'd hear their stories, some more horror stories. And I was young enough to say, and they would say, do what you got to do before you get married and have kids. It's just you. Now's the time. So I just figured now's the time, and I just didn't think. I didn't think it was the wrong time. I didn't think that I couldn't do it. I was too naive to realize that it wasn't going to happen.
I don't know that you were naive. I mean, you could have been, but from my vantage point, I thought you for your age, you had so much wisdom. You had God in you. Even though you didn't, you don't go around saying, praise the Lord, hallelujah. The glow of Jesus is all over you. It has been over you since I've known you. You've had a healthy perception of yourself. It was like, oh, I can do that. Oh yeah, I can do that. It was never, I can do that. I'm Mr. I'm Mr. Underwood. I can do that. Right. You didn't have that to you. And I think it's important for actors, the mindset of this is what God called me to do, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it with excellence. Right. And to me, that's what that was you. You were like, this is the gift God gave me. I mean, we never talked about it, but that's always how I perceived you. And you were always a breath of fresh air. Like you were the spark that always ignited me in a good way, because it was like, it always brought me back to, yes, we're acting. All that other stuff is BS. We're acting. Let's go do it. And to watch you in your, over the years in your career, to be fearless or to be scared and do it anyway, because to me, that's being fearless. The fearless is not that you are lacking fear, is that you are fearful, but you're saying, let's go take the mountain.
No, I feel like I was walking my purpose at a young age. And that's my hope. It really is my hope and wish for everybody that pursues this industry, that you find that you're walking in your purpose. Because if you do, everything else will make sense. Even when it doesn't make sense, at least you know you're on the right path. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there. But those are the questions you want to ask. Is this my purpose? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this what I'm meant to do? Is this what I was built to do? Again, watching these Olympic athletes, Simone Biles, watching her, the gymnast, the GOAT. She must be like 3 feet. It's like 3 feet, but she's just tiny, but she's physically built to spin and be the greatest. Physically first, then everything comes to mind, and motivation, all that stuff. You look at, the swimmers. All the swimmers are tall and lanky. They're built for that. So, you have to ask yourself, are you built for this? The great thing about our industry as actors is you look any way you want to, but are you emotionally? Do you have the emotional intelligence? Do you have the drive, the motivation? Can you take rejection? Are you okay? Can you let that roll off your back? Are you willing and ready to do the work? All that stuff. But answering those questions will tell you, are you walking in your purpose?
You're talking about the athletes, the Olympic athletes. What people don't realize is they have trainers that deal with them just on their mental aptitude, that they're not working with them if they can do so many spins or how many laps they can do. It's all about mindset. So if you have a bad day like Noah, if you have a bad moment, like any other athlete, you are being told to start putting back in your body, in your mind, that you can do it. They are working with your mind to get you back in that mindset of you are an Olympic athlete. And I think for actors, we need that all the time. That so that it's not about having a tough skin, but it's being reminded of who you are. I have a list of scriptures that I got years ago from my church, who I was in Christ. And whenever I start feeling out of sorts, I go to that list, who I am. God says, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. So my who I am doesn't come from outside, it comes from the God who created me. This is how he made me. So whatever you have to say about me, it gets canceled, because this is who God said I am. I am fearlessly and wonderfully made. I am his beloved. I am the apple of his eyes. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I am the head and not the tail. Everything I touch prospers. So as you're speaking that out, right? God created the world by speaking. The first chapter of Genesis talks about he said it and it was. He said it and it was. He said it and it was. How many times are we saying things that was in a negative way? I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. It's training yourself like an athlete to start speaking lovely things about yourself. And in the New Testament, it tells us to think things that are good and pure and holy and lovely and of a good report. So if we're thinking good things come to us. And because you had that mindset early, and you've been able to continue that mindset, not that things don't happen, not that catastrophe doesn't come. You've lost your mother, you've lost things, you've had losses, you've had moments where you were rejected and things didn't go your way. But because the Bible also tells us to count it all joyful when you fall into trials and tribulations. We are supposed to walk joyfully. And as actors, we have to own that, have that faith, that faith. It's faith. You came out with faith. That's really what it is. You had the faith that God purposed you for something, and it is. It is. And you've been able to maintain that throughout your career to be a 19. Wait a minute. I wrote this down. You've been nominated 19 times for different things and have had 12 wins. That comes because I'm gonna tell you, let me tell you, five Image Awards, 2 Golden Globe nominations, a Tony nomination, a Grammy Award. I mean, you have achieved so much, but you've been through so much, and you've not let it deter you. You've not let it wear you down. You still look as young as you did when you came out here. You still got that swag. You still got that swag, Blair. You still got that swag. And I tell you this all the time, but I tell this to other people. I say, everybody should have a best friend like Blair. Everybody should have a best friend like Blair, because you have been such a great teacher to me, just on so many levels, as far as a husband, a father, a friend. You are an excellent friend. Excellent. And what I love is that you still have kept your friends from when you started. That still you still have that close knit of people. That says a lot. That says a lot, because in this business, you don't know who your friends are. You don't know who's hanging with you because they like you or they want the opportunity. That networking is important in this business, but it can also get perverted, you know. And
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
what is
Absolutely.
your definition of friendship?
Woo. Oh man. It's someone, I mean, I think, I go back 40 years now. I don't know, whatever, about 40 years. Friendship is to me, is being consistent, is being loyal, is having someone's back, is being there for them, um, not betraying them, not using them for your own gain. Um, in the simplest of terms, just having their back. That's how I see it. I mean, my friends like you, and you're right. My boys, my best friends are from high school. Um, you know, and someone, when I first came into the LA, and you know them all. And it's not a lot. It's actually a handful. And it's because you see each other. You have you have a familiar sense of humor, outlook on life, values, you know, um, and then you're there. And this. I mean, we've talked about it. We talked about it today. How difficult and challenging and wonderful, but how difficult and challenging sometimes this business can be. And when you feel chewed up and spit out, it's important to have somebody to talk to who has your back in that sense and can just give you that ear at that time. So for me, that's what friendship's about. It's showing up. It's showing up and being there.
You know, and not,
Good
yeah,
times and
not
bad times.
judging,
And there will be both.
but supporting and also calling people out, calling them out when they are going astray. I just love how you wrap the people you love with love, how you embrace them, how you show up for them, you care. And being my daughter's godfather, how much
That's
you
right,
invested
Lexie.
into her and into me as a single mom, that you were like, okay, so what are you, okay, come on over, let's do this. And and I have to tell you that when I was pregnant, I want y'all to know what kind of person my Blair is. When I was pregnant, you never made me feel isolated. It was a very difficult time for me. And out of all my friends, you were the only one out here. Because I have people in New York that would come out here during my pregnancy, but out here, you were the only one that made sure I ate. I remember there were days I couldn't eat, and you said, "Well, let's get something." And you never made me feel ashamed. You never, because I felt I carried so much shame being pregnant out of wedlock, and feeling like I disappointed people, that I had these great mentors, and you should be smarter than that. How could you end up pregnant? How could you do this? But you never, ever, ever judged me. And then when I went into labor, you and Holly, my pastor's wife, slept on the floor with me in the hospital, and that you were working that day on a different world, and you're like, yeah, my friend's getting ready to have a baby, so I may have to go. And I just remember what a gift. That was such a gift that any friend could give. And you just showed up, and you always have shown up. And I just want you to know that I go back to that line that guy said, you define masculinity. Blair Underwood defines masculinity. And to me, growing up, I had a problem with men, certain men, not all men, but the false men. I call them the false men. They were really little boys in men's clothing, and they brought chaos. So I had issues, and you really helped me to heal, to be able to look at all men in a different light, to be able to honor all men because of you. I knew a lot of men. I knew that, having been in the record business and having been in acting, I came across all kind of men, not good men, but they never. There's a word in I think it's Hebrew. It's mashak, when somebody rubs up against you and their stuff gets on you. It's a mashaking. So you
Ah,
mashak. So it's
Mashak,
like,
Mashak.
you want to be
I
with
like that.
friends who mashak you, who put their stuff on you in a good way. Anthony Robbins always says, you are the sum total of your 5 closest people. And so
Oh, wow.
that you were
Wow.
one of those people in my inner circle who built me up. Like whenever I would talk to you, I never felt less than. I never felt like I was out of sorts, or
Oh, I'm glad.
even in my church during that time, I had people who said to me, well, maybe you shouldn't be acting, maybe you should not be doing this. And I remember just being rebellious, like, wait a minute. And it wasn't until I got the understanding, wait a minute, God purposed you to do this, otherwise he would not have given you that gift, so now you got to do it. So hearing you talking about purpose, I think this is something that every person who is listening to this is to walk in your purpose. The best thing you could do is just walk in your purpose, turn off those critics inside your brain, and walk in your purpose.
Well, Lydia, you honor me. You honor me by so much of what you've said and shared with your audience, and I deeply appreciate that. But I want to say to you and about you that you are such an amazing human being, and the work that you're doing as we sit here right now is of service to people who are pursuing this industry, pursuing acting. And so much, if they know you and they tune into you, if they're reading your planner and doing the work that you're doing, they know that so much of what this industry is about and what we do as artists is more about your humanity than about your business savvy or the technology used. And it's what you bring to the party, your humanity. It's what I've seen from day one in you and your heart and the mother you've been to Lexie, my goddaughter, the mother you've been in challenging times. You're a survivor. And if anybody should be listening to anybody about how to survive life in as much as this industry and the craft, but life alone, they're speaking to the right person. So that's why, listen, anytime you ask me to do something, we'll sit for 2 hours and
well,
talk,
it's
chat,
we want to
chop it up.
thrive. We want to, we didn't come in this business with a manual. So for me, it's important to put the manual together and say, here, let me give you the map to help you, to keep you from the pitfalls, to keep you from, because we've seen so many people fall by the wayside. Their spirits got their spirits just got diminished. They committed suicide, they drank, they didn't take care of themselves, they died too early, they left the business broken and never to regain their footing, and it's like to give people an understanding that God is the big creator and we are the little creators. And when we tap into God, everything flows, because you tapped into God. All these outlets flowed to you. It's like you were talking about directing early on. You were talking about, Hannibal, and I want to do this movie, and I want to do the second coming of Christ, and I want to do this, and I want to do this. And because you were tapped in, doors started opening up. And I believe that. I believe when you tap into God, and I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about tapping into the source, that all of a sudden doors open up. They just fling open for you and give you the desires of your heart, because you have aligned yourself with the great creator. And he loves when we create. The lie the devil tells us is, you shouldn't be creating. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? And it could be your own family members telling you, why are you doing that? You shouldn't be doing that. But that's not what God says. So that if we train ourselves to what God says, I'm a big believer, and it took me a long time to go to, what did God say? Because I didn't know that I didn't grow up in church. I didn't grow up, but
Right.
when I did get a hold of the Bible, I said, wait a minute, what did God, wait, what you said? That's not what he said. He didn't say that. But I'm gonna go here because this is what he said. And I'll just give you this one little thing. So perplexity, my new best friend. This morning I was having my prayer session with my prayer partner, and she quoted Matthew 22. I think it was 22:11, and it was a parable about the king having a wedding feast, and he invited all these people, and the one guy shows up and he's not dressed up, he's not dressed for the wedding. And so, and then it says, and the end of the little parable go, many are called but few are chosen. So I said to her, let's see what perplexity has to say. I'm just curious. So we went through different versions of the Bible, and they each had and I'm a big believer in, when you read the Bible, read at least 4 to 5 versions, because it really illuminates things for you. But as we were reading it, it was that God has given us each the appropriate clothes to wear, but we choose not to wear it. He has given us salvation. He says, I've got salvation for you. I've got good things for you. But we may go to church, we may hang out and fellowship after church, but we never get to connect with God and we're superficial Christians, or we're superficial believers. We're not really plugging in. Right. So that we've been called to come, but we haven't been chosen because we haven't given ourselves to him. And so it is that thing of coming together. And I bring this up because Long Legs is a very, 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 very dark movie. And in the movie, and I called you afterwards, in the movie, one of the characters, without giving anything away, keeps asking another character, have you been praying? Have you been praying? Have you been praying? And that, and it's funny because that's the piece that really stood out for me. And so I would turn to Lexie and I go, we're praying. We're praying. We're praying. And I just, as an actor, as an artist, as someone creative, you got to pray and you got to stay connected, because if God called you to something, don't let anyone steal it from you. That's what I believe, because the powers out there want to take away what God, the superpower that God gave you. And I believe your craft, your skill, your gift is a superpower to better the world. And you do that all the time. You better the world, Blair Underwood. You better the world. And I'm not, and you know me, I always tell the truth about people. I don't be giving people no flowers if they don't deserve no flowers, because your balls need to be busted. So I just want you to know that you better the world, my friend. I am so happy, first of all, that I know you, that and I don't know you surfacely, but I know your heart. I know you. I know what a good man you are, what a fantastic actor you are, how deep you go, how much you love the work. And I want to know, why do you love the work? Why do you love the work?
I think it's because I love humanity. I love people. I love human beings. I love the complexities. I'm fascinated by human behavior. Why we do what we do. I mean, it's really that simple. I love the exploration of that, because each time you do character work, you're breaking down and exploring behavior of a human being. And then the variety. There's a billion different ways you can play probably one character. So how do you approach that? I love the exploration and the analysis and the breakdown of the human psyche. If I could not have been an actor, I would have been a psychologist, because of that understanding and just the traversing the mind and the emotions of human beings. So yeah, that's why. I mean, I will act. I will act to the day I die. I might be acting in my living room, but as long as people hire me, I'll be acting and exploring, you know, the character development that fits inside and tells whatever story we have before us.
What character or genre do you want to explore in the next couple of years that you haven't really fully explored yet?
I want to do more horror films. You know, Longlegs was my first horror film. I did a satire, Bad Hair, a couple years ago, which was great fun to do, but a proper horror film, and tonally, speaking of tone and texture. I just want to do more of that because I just love scary films as an audience member. That I would love to do the Marvin Gaye story before I age out. You know, too old to play it because I think he died at 40 something.
Yeah, but black don't crack. Black don't crack.
But yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Black don't crack. I'd love to do some action adventures. I haven't really done much of that, you know. What I've done, my career has been really the stuff I love the most, which is character work, you know, character dramas mostly. But I would love to do some more action. And I feel like God has blessed me with a lot, but there's so much I haven't even. I feel like I barely scratched the surface.
What was it like for you to do the digging on your ancestry?
Oh man. Well, you know what family means to me. And it was gratifying, it was fulfilling, it was intriguing, it was compelling, it was exciting. You know, all of those things. It's funny because that whole show was a show.
And you can
called,
find it on YouTube.
Who Do You Think You
It's
Are?
really good. Go ahead.
Find it on YouTube, yeah. And you know, people would ask sometimes, so okay, so you know who your great grandfather was. So what? What difference does it make? I find the more you like building a character, the more you know about your history, the more you know about yourself, the taller you walk, the more empowered you become within yourself, within your own skin. I would talk about thicker skin. My mother used to say, yeah, I want you to feel comfortable in your skin. You know, who we are. The name of that show is Who Do You Think You Are? To learn to know who you are makes you walk stronger, taller, prouder. So that's why it was important to me. So it was all those feelings, but also the lasting effect was it made me feel even stronger to understand where I came from and my ancestors. My dad had never been to Africa. I've been fortunate to go maybe 7 or 8 times. I had just had a family vacation 2 months before we shot that. And I knew that I wanted to, hopefully, that our journey would end up in Africa, and I would hopefully be able to take my dad with me. And I was able to. So to me, that was the highlight of it all. I mean, it was the journey that I took, but it was the journey really watching him when we got to Africa, Cameroon, Africa. But to watch his whole spirit lift, because it was always important. Family has always been the penultimate to my dad. And he gave that to us. My mother was an only child. My father had 6 siblings he grew up with. His mother had 15 kids. Most of them died at birth, except those 6. But family was always a big family on my father's side. So to take that journey and to go back to Africa and legitimately meet somebody who's 10 generations away was the most incredible thing for me. But the icing really was watching my father learn this information, to see him walk on that continent of Africa. He's talked about his whole life.
There were 2 other pieces that you got to learn. I believe it was about your mother. You had an ancestor who was a conjurer. Yes.
Saudi Arabian, that's right.
So, which I thought was everybody has to watch this YouTube video because it is amazing just to hear his story. And also hear about, I mean, there was some information I had never heard before as far as freed people buying slaves who were family members. So they were still slaves, but they took care of them. And I had never heard anything like that before I watched the documentary. So I thought that was awesome.
I had never heard that either. But they knew if they could buy them back, these enslaved individuals, and put them in the family, they could be under the household and under the auspices and the protection of the household. And on my mother's side, there are a lot of freed what we call freed blacks and mulattoes, as they were called back then. So they're mixed blood. So they had more documentation of their history than a lot of black folks
And
on my father's side.
how did your mother like it? I'm just curious to know how Marilyn liked knowing that information.
She loved every minute of it because she was an only child, and her parents weren't married, so she always felt that kind of that loss of a broken home, coming from a broken home, that she felt. So to me, and to her, it really it filled some of those voids, and it kind of gave her a lot of the missing pieces that she just didn't know.
That was beautiful. So, what do you want your legacy to be?
Ooh, that's deep. That's deep. Man, you know, I think it changes, you know, the older I get, and I see, you know, my wife, Josie, and I have 9 kids. She has 6 and I have 3, as you know, and I got this from her. She would always call her kids her life's work. And I feel the same way, that the raising of my kids, and the continuing showing up for them is, I think, the greatest legacy you can leave. So I hope my legacy is the work that I do, but the process of that work, treating people with respect and dignity and honoring them and their crafts and their gifts. Hopefully that can inspire somebody along the way. And whether we like it or not, our children are our own legacy.
I love it. I love it. I feel the same way. 3 icons that you worked with that you took something away from working with them, be it a skill you learned, something that you use today, or just something they said that you bring with you just when you think of it.
3, I don't know. I mean, I never worked with Mr. Portier, but definitely one of the icons and mentors in my life. Cicely Tyson, I had the chance to work with 5 different times, the last being Trip Bountiful. You know, what I take with her is taking care of herself. You mentioned work ethic before, but work ethic, but also taking care of her health. She was 90 years old. She'd be doing sit-ups every day. She'd do 60 sit-ups every day. I'm sorry, push-ups every day at 90 years old. So that she was an incredible inspiration to me about taking care of your health. Again, the older I get, you don't take your health for granted as much as I used to.
What did Sidney Poitier give you? What was one thing you took away from him?
I don't know if we have enough time, but what I took away from him was being open and personable to everyone. I never saw him deny an autograph or a picture. Perspective of life and career, I got from him. Guidance in career and craft. The greatest gift he gave me was his presence. He was always accessible, and so often showed up to my projects or tuned into my projects and gave me feedback on that. He was a great, an extraordinary human being and a great friend.
And who was the third?
And mentor. That's a good question. Who was the third? You know, what comes to mind is Stephen Bochco. Stephen Bochco, who created LA Law, who created City of Angels, created Hill Street Blues and NYPD Blue. It's just an entertainment juggernaut in terms of a creator.
And wasn't he an alumni of Mellon Carnegie Mellon? Yes. As you are.
And yes, indeed. In fact, I remember when I was at Carnegie Mellon, he came with the cast of Hill Street Blues and spoke to the fine arts department. And I remember him saying, when you ever come out to LA, look us up. Why would he tell me that? Actually, I never did. I never did because I auditioned for him, but I reminded him of that in the audition that he had said that. But no, in a decision he made to cast me in LA Law, he changed my life. And then years later, you know, when LA Law was coming to an end and I was going to leave the show this last year, I didn't know if the show's going to get picked up. You never know if the show's going to get picked up. But I'd done the show for 7 years. He kind of moved on to other shows, but his office was right down the street at 20th Century Fox Studios. And I went down and talked to him. I said, you know, I was kind of hemming and hawing, trying to find the right words. And he said, it's time. He said, I get it. It's time. I said, yeah. But if I were to do another series, I would love to do like a Black medical drama. He said, you know what? I had the same idea to do that. And then he told me like the pitfalls of that. There'd never been a black drama on TV. Series. Of course, there was Roots, but it's weekly series that never happened before. He said, all right, that was it. That was it. 5 or 6 years later, I run into him at some event. He says, I got something for you. And that became City of Angels, which we ended up doing for 2 years on CBS with Vivica Fox initially. And then Gabrielle Union and Viola Davis, Hill Harper, Maya Rudolph. I mean, it was incredible. But that was a second opportunity he gave me. So no, he was definitely an icon in the entertainment industry who really taught me so much just about life, just about, as busy as he was, as famous as he was, as successful as he was, he always wrote people back, and he would send thank you cards. He would always make time to reach out, and he was always doing at least 2 shows at once. He was busy than I was. So that's something I took away from him also, to just always have time, make time for people, and do it in a handwritten note. That's the most important thing to me. I can buy most things I want. What means more to me is a handwritten note or a card. Taking the time.
You're a production company. What would you like to get done with your production company?
Yeah. There's still so many really historical projects that deal with Black history. You mentioned Hannibal. I forgot about that. That was when I first came here. We were talking about the Hannibal story. But there's still many more have been done since then, but still stories that need to be told that haven't been told yet that deal with this history of Black and brown people. And that's really what I want to do more of with my production company. Well, listen, you already spoke to the fact that this is an industry you walk into and there's no book or a manual to go along with it, so you created the manual. So I think it's amazing what you're doing, and helping people just kind of navigate this crazy thing, because it's different. Every single person's life and journey is uniquely different, but you've given people a manual and a workbook to kind of just help them and have the confidence they have something to hang their hat on, and more than just hang their hat on. It's so detailed, and it's just a nice springboard to enter this business and navigate through this business.
The book, where's the book? The book. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Actor, get the book. It is good. It will help you. It will clarify things for you. It will clarify your goals.
Well, listen, you already spoke to the fact that this is an industry you walk into and there's no book or a manual to go along with it, so you created the manual. So I think it's amazing what you're doing, and helping people just kind of navigate this crazy thing, because it's different. Every single person's life and journey is uniquely different, but you've given people a manual and a workbook to kind of just help them and have the confidence they have something to hang their hat on, and more than just hang their hat on. It's so detailed, and it's just a nice springboard to enter this business and navigate through this business.
Oh, one more thing. Goal setting. How do you do your goals? How do you work on your goals?
Oh, man. So much of it is, a lot of people write their goals down. I write them down sometimes, not usually, to be honest with you. I just live it, think it constantly, thinking about it, praying about it, every night, every morning, praying about it, putting it at the forefront of your spirit and of your mind. Has always worked. You're talking about physical manifestation of your dreams and your goals and your visions. In order for it to manifest, it's an active thing, and it takes active repetition to do it. Whether that's prayer, whether it's writing it down and seeing it every day because you've written it down. I just see it in my head a lot, but writing it down helps for a lot of people. So
thank you.
Whatever works for you. But that whole thing of manifesting your dreams through your thoughts, through your prayers, and then through the physical acts of walking through it and making it happen is real.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode. Please leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Share it with your friends. And if you want to know how to be a fantastic voiceover actor, then this video is for you. We got to interview the bestest voice director and award-winning director, Andrea Romano. Check it out.